Hey team, welcome back from spring break. Hope you guys had a really good week off. I know last week's assignments were kind of out of the ordinary because you were just doing them on your own. I'll get you some feedback on those this week. This week we're really jumping into new material. All the previous weeks that we've been in Google Classroom, we've been doing stuff that we're reviewing, stuff that we already learned when we were in the classroom. Today we are learning something brand new that some of you might have learned in 5th grade, but we've never learned before together in the 6th grade classroom. So it's going to be especially important moving forward that you are very, very carefully watching all these videos. First thing that I'm going to show for you is your answers from Friday. As promised, I told you I would make sure that we're checking our work. So you'll be able to tell exactly what grade you're going to get on this based on how you did on these questions. All right. At this point, you should answer your 2 PDN questions. Remember that number 2 should definitely be done on the notebook paper. And you're going to pause your video now and come back once this is done and you're ready to check answers. Okay, on your PDN. Remember to find the area of composite figures. We need to make sure that there are dividing it into 3 different shapes. On this one, I see a triangle. I'm going to call that shape 1. I see a rectangle. And I see a parallelogram. The triangle that I see is right here. If I were to draw a line across right here. So I'm going to say my base is 4 and my height is 2. So what I did is I labeled this with a base of 4 and a height of 2. For my rectangle, the top of the rectangle is right here, the bottom of the rectangle is right here. So the base is 1, 2, 3, 4. The height is 1, 2. So I'll label this as 4 and 2. Then for the parallelogram, the top base is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's base 1. Base 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the height goes from here down to here, 1, 2. Now it's just a matter of using my formulas to solve. A equals B times H over 2. A equals 4 times 2 over 2. A equals 8 over 2. A equals 4. I don't worry about a unit yet because I'm not done. For the second one, area equals base times height because it's just a rectangle. Area equals 4 times 2. Area equals 8. For the third one, area equals parentheses B1 plus B2. Close parentheses times H over 2. Area equals parentheses base 1 is 8 plus, base 2 is 4. Height is 2 over 2. Gotta do the parentheses first. Area equals 12 times 2 over 2. And your final answer for this one is 12. Of course, we're not done yet. We still need to add up all our areas. So we do 4 plus 8 plus 12. 4 plus 8 plus 12 gives me 24. So my answer is 24 units squared. Got to be squared because I'm dealing with area. Okay. We are now ready to jump into today's lesson. Today we're going to be working on the volume of a rectangular prism. This week we're going to finish up our geometry unit until we go back into the classroom. We'll do 3 more lessons this week and we'll go back to 3D shapes once we're back in regular school. So we're talking today about 3-dimensional shapes rather than the 2D flat shapes that we have been working on. We're going to focus on volume. I know a lot of you covered this in 5th grade, so it'll be a review for most. Volume is the amount of space an object takes up. When we talk about volume, we're referring to 3D shapes as opposed to 2D shapes, which are just flat on paper. So 3D shapes are things that we can actually touch and put things inside. The reason it's a 3D shape is because it has 3 dimensions. When we were working on area, we had 2 dimensions, base and height. For 3D shapes, we add a 3rd dimension. The formula for volume is length times width times height. That's what you'll write for each problem as soon as you start it. A final reminder, when we did area, the unit was always to the second power. Example, feet squared. For volume, the unit is always to the third power. Example, feet to the third power, because there are 3 dimensions. Length times width times height gives me to the third power. So let's look exactly how this would look. Find the volume. On my scratch paper, I'm going to write examples. I'm going to start with number 1. Whenever I'm asked to find volume of a rectangular prism, I'm always going to start with my formula. Volume equals length, that's a cursive L, because I don't want the L to just look like a 1, times width times height. Okay? It actually does not matter which order you consider length or width or height. This could be your length, this could be your length, this could be your length. Because it doesn't matter in multiplication, it kind of depends how you're looking at the shape. But I'm going to say my length is 10, my width is 4, and my height is 6. So I'm writing the problem. I replace my length with 10, my width with 4, and my height is 6. All that I have to do now is multiply. I'll do 10 times 4 first, is 40 times 6. Volume equals, I know 4 times 6 is 240, is 24, so 40 times 6 is 240. On the paper, it's in inches, so my volume is not just inches, but inches to the third power. When you write your answer, you can either say 240. If you know how to put in inches to the third power, you can do that. If you don't, you could say inches to the third power. So that's perfectly acceptable if you can't figure out how to do the exponent. Okay, let's look at question number 2. It says find the volume. Exactly the same steps as before. The only thing here is that we're dealing with fractions. So I'm going to start by writing my formula for number 2. Volume equals length times width times height. Every single problem today is going to start with that. Volume equals 1.5 times 1 times 3 3/4. All I did was take the 3 numbers that it gave me for volume and I multiplied them by each other. In order to multiply fractions, I need to change everything to an improper fraction. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3 over 2, times 1 over 1, times 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15 over 4. Now for this particular problem, I can do this first. 3 over 2 times 1 over 1 is just 3 over 2. I'm left with times 15 over 4. No real lacrosse I can do, so I'm just going to multiply this out. 45 over 8. Of course, I got to change that back to a mixed number. 8 goes into 45 5 times with 5 left over, so I have 5 5/8. Making sure that I'm also putting inches cubed, inches to the third power. And on the computer, when I type out my answer, I have a couple of choices. I can write 5 space to show that the 5 is a whole number, and then 5/8 inches to the third power. Okay, so this shows me your whole number, your fraction, and then your unit, inches to the third power. Right now you have 3 questions to do on your own. You're going to pause the video and you're going to come back once you have them all solved. Okay, welcome back. For number 1, volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 12 times 8 times 5. Times 5. Notice that it does not matter what order I put them in. It also doesn't matter which direction I do these. I can do the 8 times 5 first to get 40 times 12 equals volume. I also know 12 times 4 is 48, so 12 times 40 is 480. And then my unit here is inches to the third power. I might have had to type that out on the computer to get to the third power. Number 2, volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 9 times 1 1/3 times 4 2/3. Cannot multiply fractions unless I have everything as an improper fraction. Volume equals 9 over 1 times 3 times 1 plus 1 is 4 over 3 times 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2 is 14 over 3. Now, just like any other time we do multiplication, we can do lacrosse. We can change this to 3 and 1. So I'm left with volume equals 3 over 1 times 4 over 1 times 14 over 3. I can actually switch the order of these and make it 4 over 1 times 3 over 1. Because when I do that, it's going to be easier for me to see that I could use lacrosse on this one too and make them both 1s. So I'm left with then 4 over 1 times 1 over 1 times 14 over 1. All I then need to do is multiply top times top times top. 4 times 1 is 4 times 14 is 56. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So my final answer is 56 inches cubed. Make sure you're writing that in your document before you turn it in. Okay. Number 3. Number 3 might have required some scrapwork, so I'm going to show you how you should have done that. Remember that your work should look exactly like mine. Volume equals 7.1 times, oh, that's a mistake. What's my mistake? Always start with my formula. Volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 7.1 times 7.1 times 1.5. I'm just going to have to make a choice. For my choice, I'm actually going to do this one first. So I'm going to come over here and do 7.1 times 7.1, 1, 7, 0 on the second line, 7, 49, 1, 4, 0, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, put my decimal and I get 50.41. So all I've done is solve this first part. I still have to solve the second part times 1.5. So I'm going to take the answer that I got, 50.41 times 1.5. Notice it's multiplication, so I don't have to line up my decimal. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 4, carry the 2, 2, 25, 0, 1, 4, 0, 5. Add them all up, 5, 1, 1, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. So I put my decimal, 1, 2, 3, and my answer is 76.115, and then this is meters to the third power, or if you need to write it on the computer, meters to the third power. Okay, double check your answers, make sure they're correct on your Google document, and then hit pause so that you can solve section 2. 3 more questions to do independently. Hit unpause once you have them done. Okay, welcome back. Number 1. Volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 2 3/4 times 1/2 times 1 1/4. Remember that your order does not matter because in multiplication we can go in any order, so all I need to do is change these into improper fractions. Volume equals 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3 is 11 over 4 times 1 over 2 times 5 over 4. Trying to see is there any lacrosse or simplifying I can do, and I don't see anything, so I'm just going to do 11 times 1 is 11 times 5 is 55. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. So all I need to do is change this back into a mixed number, which gives me 1. And then I do, basically what I'm doing here is 55 divided by 32 goes in 1 time. What do I have left over? 23. So my answer is 1 and 23 over 32. And then I still need my unit centimeters cubed. This looks like a weird answer, but it is the correct answer. Trust that you're doing the steps correctly. Okay, number 2. Volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 3 1/3 times 1/7 times 5 2/3. Okay, more fractions. Yes, it's a little bit more work, but as you're getting ready for 7th grade, the expectation is that in 7th grade, you'll be able to solve this question no problem. 3 times 3 plus 1 is 10 over 3 times 1 over 7 times 17 over 3. No real simplifying I can do. 10 times 1 is 10 times 17 gives me 170. 3 times 7 is 21 times 3 gives me 21 times 3 is 63. Gonna have to do a little division problem. 170 divided by 63. I know it goes in 2 times. 2 times 63 is 126. Gonna have to find out what my remainder is. Remainder 44. So my answer is 2 and 44 over 63 inches cubed. Again, this looks like a weird answer, but if we're following our steps, that's fine. That we can be confident that is the correct answer. Final one we're going to do all together before you start your exit ticket. Number 3, volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 10 times 3 1/2 times 1 1/2. Volume equals 10 over 1 times 7 over 2 times 3 over 2. I see a little bit of lacrosse I could do right here to make this a 5 and a 1. So I'm going to rewrite it as volume equals 5 over 1 times 7 over 1 times 3 over 2. 5 times 7 is 35 times 3 is 105 over 2. Got to change that back to a mixed number. 2 goes into 105. 52 times with 1 left over. So 52.5 inches to the 3rd power, inches cubed. All of those are things that you could have written on your paper, or if you figured out how to do your exponent, that's great. Okay, a couple of reminders as you start your exit ticket. Remember that every single question, you just have one on it, but you should definitely start with V equals L times W times H. If you get this one wrong after you submit it, I'm going to do a couple things. 1, I'm going to make sure that you watch the video, and 2, I might ask you to send me a picture of your work so we can find you where your mistake is. Make sure you put your answer in on this document before you press turn it in, and then you have your 5 assignments for Khan Academy that are due this week. As always, give me a call if you have any questions, 847-769-4731, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow.